Right now, inside your body, electrons are doing something that should be impossible. They're disappearing from one energy state and reappearing in another, without traveling through the space between. One moment here, next moment there. The gap? Never occupied. And you've been doing the exact same thing your entire life. Every time you became someone new overnight. Every time a months-long internal war resolved in a single moment of clarity. Every time something just clicked and the world rearranged itself around that click. That wasn't gradual growth. That wasn't linear progress. That was a quantum jump in consciousness. Here's what should terrify the part of you that's been waiting for permission to change. One of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics spent his career trying to prove this couldn't happen. He hated the idea of quantum jumps so much. He compared them to medieval superstition. His name was Erwin Schrödinger, and he was wrong. We caught quantum jumps mid-flight. We predicted them before they happened. We reversed them, which means the version of you that's whole, aligned, powerful, free, you don't have to slowly build toward it. It already exists right now, in superposition with who you are in this moment. You just have to learn how to jump.
1913, Copenhagen. A Danish physicist named Niels Bohr just solved one of the great mysteries of his era. When you run electricity through a tube of hydrogen gas, it glows. But it doesn't glow in a continuous rainbow. It produces sharp, specific bands of light. The same frequencies, every time. Why? Bohr's answer was radical. What if electrons can't have just any energy? What if they can only exist at specific levels, like rungs on a ladder, not a smooth ramp? Rung 3, or rung 5, but never 3.7. When an electron moves between rungs, it emits or absorbs a photon, a packet of light, matching the exact energy difference between those levels. This explained everything. Each element had its own ladder, its own signature of light. But there was a problem buried in this theory, a problem that would haunt physics for 100 years. How does the electron get from one rung to another? Bohr's answer? It jumps. Instantaneously. One moment here, next moment there. It never occupies the space between. The quantum jump was born, and one man absolutely despised it. Erwin Schrödinger was one of the architects of quantum mechanics. In 1925, he developed the wave equation that bears his name, the mathematical description of how quantum systems evolve through time, one of the most important equations in physics. But Schrödinger had a vision of quantum mechanics that was completely different from Bohr's. To Schrödinger, everything was waves, smooth, continuous, flowing waves. Electrons weren't particles jumping between levels. They were wave patterns, shifting between modes of vibration. Like a guitar string vibrating at different frequencies. The transition between frequencies is continuous, no jumps required. This wasn't academic preference. Schrödinger found instantaneous jumps physically repulsive. They violated his intuition about how nature worked. They felt like surrender, like saying, "We don't understand this, so we'll call it magic." In 1926, Schrödinger visited Bohr's home in Copenhagen. He was sick, bedridden with illness, and supposedly Bohr sat by his bedside and argued with him about quantum jumps while the man tried to recover. Schrödinger finally told him, "If we are still going to have to put up with these damn quantum jumps, I'm sorry that I ever had anything to do with quantum theory." That's how much he hated the idea. 26 years later, Schrödinger published a 2-part essay with a provocative title, "Are There Quantum Jumps?" His answer, no. He compared quantum jumps to epicycles, the complicated circular motions medieval astronomers invented to explain planetary motion in an Earth-centered universe. Epicycles worked mathematically. You could predict where planets would appear, but they weren't real. They were ingenious constructs masking ignorance of the true system. Schrödinger argued quantum jumps were the same thing, a mathematical convenience that would eventually be replaced by a proper understanding of continuous wave mechanics. And he had a point that resonated. He said, "We never experiment with just one electron or atom. In thought experiments, we sometimes assume that we do. This invariably entails ridiculous consequences." He was right. In 1952, no one had ever actually seen a single quantum jump. We'd only inferred them from observing large numbers of atoms behaving statistically. Maybe Bohr was wrong. Maybe quantum jumps were useful fiction. Maybe Schrödinger would be vindicated. Fast forward 30 years, the 1980s. Technology had advanced enough to do something previously impossible: trap a single atom using lasers. One atom isolated in space, held in place by carefully tuned beams of light. In 1986, 3 different research teams did something extraordinary. They observed quantum jumps in individual atoms. Here's how it worked. Take a single atom, mercury or barium. It has multiple electron energy levels. Call them level 1, level 2, level 3. Bathe this atom in a laser beam precisely tuned to the energy difference between level 1 and level 2. If the electron is in level 1, it absorbs a photon and jumps to level 2. Then it immediately falls back down to level 1, emitting an identical photon in a random direction. This happens extraordinarily fast. In these experiments, the electron jumped between levels 1 and 2 about 100 million times per second. The atom glows. It fluoresces. But here's the clever part. These atoms also have a third energy level, level 3, that's much more stable. An electron in level 3 might stay there for several seconds before decaying. So the researchers added a second laser tuned to take the electron from level 1 to level 3. And something dramatic happened. The atom went dark. One moment, brilliant fluorescence, rapidly cycling between levels 1 and 2. The next moment, darkness. The electron jumped to level 3 and got stuck there. No more cycling, no more glow. Then, seconds later, the electron decays back to level 1. The fluorescence starts again. On, off, on, off. The researchers watched individual quantum jumps happening in real time, and the timing appeared completely random, unpredictable. Just as Bohr had said, Schrödinger was wrong. Quantum jumps were real. Or were they? Those 1986 experiments proved quantum jumps occurred, but they couldn't answer the deeper questions. Were the jumps truly instantaneous? Did the electron really teleport without passing through intermediate states? Or was Schrödinger partially right? Was there some continuous transition hidden beneath what appeared discontinuous? And what about the randomness? If the jumps were truly random, why? What mechanism determined when they occurred? To answer these questions required technology that didn't exist in 1986. It exists now. A few years ago, a team of researchers at Yale created what they called an artificial atom. Not a real atom, a quantum system made of superconducting circuits that behaved exactly like an atom with 3 energy levels. The advantage, they could monitor this system with extraordinary precision, far better than anything possible with real atoms. They set up the same 3-level system. Ground state, 2 excited states. They placed the artificial atom inside a microwave cavity and watched closely. What they discovered was astonishing. First, The quantum jumps were not instantaneous. They took time. A few microseconds, incredibly brief, but measurable. During that time, the system transitioned through intermediate states, exactly as Schrödinger had predicted. The jumps weren't teleportation. They were rapid but continuous transformations. But here's what shattered everything we thought we knew. You could predict when a jump was about to happen. Just before each jump, the system started behaving differently. There was a subtle warning sign, a precursor signal. The researchers learned to recognize this signal, and once they could recognize it, they could predict with high accuracy that a quantum jump was about to occur. According to standard quantum mechanics, these jumps should be completely random. No warning, no pattern. But there was a pattern, a signal, a tell, which means you can reverse a quantum jump mid-flight. Once the researchers could predict jumps, they did something even more remarkable. When they detected the warning signal, when they knew a jump was beginning, they adjusted the microwave field in the cavity. And the jump reversed. The system started to transition to the excited state, then changed its mind and fell back to the ground state. They caught a quantum jump mid-flight and turned it around. The most fundamental, supposedly random process in nature turned out to be predictable, controllable, reversible. One of the researchers put it perfectly. The jumps are not instantaneous and abrupt. Instead, they are coherent and continuous. Schrödinger was right about the continuity. Bohr was right that something genuinely discontinuous happens when you measure the system strongly enough. They were both right and both wrong. Your consciousness, the way you experience yourself, the patterns of thought and belief that define your identity, is subject to these same principles. The intensity of your self-observation determines what type of transition you experience. When you're rigidly attached to your identity, when you're constantly monitoring yourself, judging yourself, defending your self-concept, you create strong measurement. You collapse your wave function into a fixed state, and any change from that state becomes abrupt, random, often triggered only by external crisis. This is why people change only when life forces them to. A health crisis, a relationship ending, rock bottom. The strong measurement comes from outside, collapses the old identity, forces a sudden jump to a new state. But there's another way. When you loosen your grip on your identity, when you allow yourself to exist in superposition, when you observe yourself gently rather than intensely, you can transition smoothly through intermediate states. You can predict when a transformation is beginning. You can guide it. You can reverse it if it's not serving you. This is the quantum jump you can control. And just like those Yale researchers learned to detect warning signals before a quantum jump, you can learn to detect the signs that you're ready for transformation. That restlessness you feel, that's not random. That's the precursor signal. That sense that something needs to change but you can't quite name it, that's the system preparing to transition. That moment when your old stories about yourself suddenly feel hollow and false. That's the beginning of the jump. The question is, are you going to fight it and collapse back to your old state? Or are you going to complete the transition? In the quantum experiments, the researchers didn't just passively watch. They created the conditions for jumps to occur. They tuned the microwaves. They controlled the environment. They actively participated in the process. You can do the same thing with your consciousness. The microwave cavity, for your mind, is your environment. The information you consume. The people you spend time with. The practices you engage in. The questions you ask yourself. The warning signal is that feeling of dissatisfaction, restlessness, or misalignment. Your system telling you it's ready to transition. The reversal mechanism is your ability to recognize when you're jumping towards something not aligned with your deeper truth, and redirect before you collapse into that state. The smooth, continuous transition is what happens when you give yourself permission to change without needing to justify it, without needing a dramatic story, without needing external validation. You just become different, not through willpower, not through affirmations, through alignment with the natural process of quantum transitions in consciousness.
Have you ever questioned the nature of your reality?
Physics tells us unambiguously, observation changes the system. When you measure a quantum system, you don't passively record pre-existing information. You actively participate in determining what state the system is in. This is the observer effect, experimentally verified thousands of times. Not philosophy, physics, and it applies to your life. The way you observe yourself, the stories you tell about who you are, the beliefs you hold about what's possible, the lens through which you interpret experience, actively participates in determining what state you're in. You think you're objectively observing your limitations. You're not. You're creating them through the act of observation. Here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. You can change what you observe, which means you can change what you are, not by lying to yourself, not by denying reality, but by recognizing that the reality you're experiencing is not objective. It's collapsed from a field of possibilities by your observation, and you can choose to observe differently. The quantum jump isn't something that happens to you. It's something you participate in, a collaboration between your consciousness and the field of possibility. You've heard of the double-slit experiment, but let me show you what it actually reveals. Take a particle, an electron or photon. Fire it at a barrier with two slits. Put a detector screen behind the barrier to see where the particle lands. If you're not watching which slit the particle goes through, you get an interference pattern. Bands of light and dark that can only be explained if the particle behaves as a wave, going through both slits simultaneously and interfering with itself. But if you put detectors at the slits, if you observe it, the interference pattern disappears. The particle behaves like a particle, going through one slit or the other. Never both. Same setup, same particle. Different outcome based solely on whether you're observing. Here's what this tells us. Reality exists in a fluid, undetermined state until consciousness interacts with it. The act of observation, conscious awareness focusing on something, collapses the wave of possibilities into a fixed actuality. Not observation by a machine. That's been tested. A machine recording information doesn't collapse the wave function unless and until a conscious observer looks at the machine's data. Consciousness itself appears to be the collapsing mechanism. What this means for you, before you consciously observe your situation, before you decide what it means, what story you're telling about it, what beliefs you're bringing to it, it exists in superposition, multiple possible interpretations, multiple possible futures branching from this moment. Your conscious observation collapses that field of possibility into one specific experience. You think you're observing what's real. You're determining what becomes real. Here's where we need nuance, because there's a crucial distinction between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is what you're aware of right now, your thoughts, your intentions, your stated beliefs. Your subconscious mind is the vast infrastructure beneath. Automatic beliefs, learned patterns, emotional associations, survival programming running beneath conscious awareness. And here's the problem. Your conscious and subconscious minds are often observing reality completely differently. Consciously, you might observe yourself as worthy of love and success. Subconsciously, based on childhood experiences, past failures, absorbed cultural messages, you might be observing yourself as fundamentally deficient and destined to struggle. Which observation is stronger? The subconscious. Every time. Because the subconscious is the deeper measurement, the foundation, the ground state. This is why positive thinking often doesn't work. Why affirmations feel hollow. Why you can consciously want something desperately and still not manifest it. There's a disagreement between your conscious and subconscious observation, a misalignment between different layers of your consciousness. And when your consciousness is divided against itself, you can't collapse the wave function cleanly. You create contradictory measurements that cancel each other out, or create chaotic interference patterns in your life. Your consciousness itself is a quantum system with multiple possible states. Right now, you exist in a superposition of possible selves. The version of you that's healthy, energized, taking care of your body. The version of you that's stressed, depleted, neglecting your health. The version of you that's authentic, aligned, expressing your truth. The version of you that's performing, people-pleasing, hiding your real self. The version of you that's abundant, creative, trusting life. The version of you that's scarce, blocked, defending against loss. All of these versions exist as possibilities within you, right now. Quantum superposition in consciousness. Which one becomes your lived reality? Whichever one you observe most strongly. And observe means identify with, give attention to, tell stories about, generate emotions around, make decisions from. If you consistently observe yourself as the struggling version, if that's the self-concept you collapse into through repetitive thought and emotion, that becomes your experienced reality. But here's the revolutionary insight. You can change your observation at any moment. You can choose to collapse into a different possible self. This is the quantum jump in consciousness. And this is crucial to understand. You're not creating something new. The healthy, aligned, abundant version of you isn't in your future. It exists right now as a probability within your consciousness. You're not building it from scratch, not earning it through enough hard work or healing or personal development. All possible versions of you already exist in superposition. You're simply choosing which one to collapse into through your observation. Your consciousness is organized in layers. This isn't mystical. It's neurological, psychological, and quantum mechanical simultaneously. The top layer is conscious awareness, your thoughts, your explicit beliefs, what you think. But beneath that is vast infrastructure. Your subconscious mind. This includes automatic beliefs formed before age 7, before critical thinking developed, emotional associations created by painful or powerful experiences, survival patterns inherited from ancestors. Trauma can be inherited epigenetically. Cultural programming absorbed without conscious consent. Patterns learned from early attachment relationships. Decisions you made about yourself in moments of pain or fear. This subconscious layer is doing most of the observation. It's the primary collapsing mechanism for your quantum reality. Here's why thinking positive thoughts doesn't work. You're trying to change the observation at the conscious level, while the subconscious level is still making a completely different observation. It's like trying to change the outcome of the double slit experiment by thinking different thoughts, while the detector is still measuring which slit the particle goes through. The detector wins every time. Your subconscious is the detector. Until you change what it's measuring, your conscious intentions are just noise. This is why you can consciously want a loving relationship while subconsciously believing you're unworthy of love. Consciously desire abundance while subconsciously associating money with danger or corruption. Consciously commit to health while subconsciously using illness to get needs met. Consciously pursue authenticity while subconsciously believing your real self is unacceptable. The subconscious observation collapses your reality into alignment with its beliefs. Regardless of what you consciously want, here's a framework that changes everything. See your external reality as a perfect mirror of your subconscious mind, not your conscious thoughts, your subconscious contents. Everything you repeatedly experience, especially patterns that feel frustratingly persistent, is showing you what your subconscious believes to be true. This can be confronting. It means taking radical responsibility. It means accepting that the reality you're experiencing isn't happening to you. It's being generated by you at a level beneath conscious awareness. But it's also empowering. If your subconscious is creating your reality, then changing your subconscious changes your reality. You don't have to fight external circumstances. You have to change the internal observation. Here's where people get stuck. They look at their external reality, see all the evidence that they're broken or limited or unworthy, and that observation reinforces the subconscious belief. Reality confirms the belief. The belief creates reality, round and round. You see yourself struggling financially and think, "See, I'm not meant to be abundant. This is proof." But the struggle is being generated by a subconscious belief in scarcity. And now your conscious observation of the struggle is strengthening that subconscious belief. You're measuring yourself as struggling, which collapses you more firmly into the struggling state. So how do you break the cycle? Remember what we learned. There are two types of quantum transitions. Type 1, smooth, predictable, controllable, when you're weakly measuring the system. Type 2, abrupt, random, often traumatic, when you're strongly measuring the system. Most people change only through Type 2. A crisis forces them to quantum jump. They hit rock bottom. Something breaks. The old identity collapses suddenly, and they're forced into a new state. But there's another way. You can engineer Type 1 transitions in your consciousness by learning to measure yourself more gently. Step 1. Excavate the subconscious belief. You can't change what you're not aware of. The first step is making the unconscious conscious. Look at the patterns in your external reality. They're showing you your subconscious contents. If you keep attracting partners who abandon you, there's a subconscious belief about abandonment. If you keep self-sabotaging right before success, there's a subconscious belief that success is dangerous. If you keep struggling with health despite trying everything, there's a subconscious association between illness and safety or love. Ask yourself, what would I have to believe for this pattern to make sense? Not what do I consciously believe? What would my subconscious have to believe? Usually you'll find beliefs like, I'm not enough. I'm not safe. I don't deserve good things. If I'm successful, I'll lose connection. My pain is what makes me lovable. The world is dangerous, and I must stay small. These beliefs were formed for good reasons, usually to keep you safe in circumstances where you genuinely weren't safe. Your subconscious was protecting you, but they're no longer serving you. Step 2. Understand the positive intent. This is crucial. Your subconscious isn't trying to hurt you. Every pattern, no matter how destructive, has a positive intent beneath it. Self-sabotage might be protecting you from the vulnerability of success. People-pleasing might be keeping you safe from rejection. Staying small might be preventing you from outgrowing your family and losing belonging. The subconscious doesn't think in nuance. It makes simple equations. This behavior kept me safe once, so I'll keep doing it forever. You need to acknowledge the positive intent. Thank it. Honor the part of you that's been trying to protect you. Because if you just try to override it or eliminate it, you create internal war. And the subconscious always wins internal wars. It's stronger. It's faster. It controls your autonomic nervous system. Step 3. Update the information. Once you've identified the subconscious belief and honored its positive intent, you need to update it with new information. Not by arguing with it, not by trying to convince it through logic, but by providing experiential evidence that things are different now. The subconscious learns through experience, not through thinking. This is why talk therapy can be limited. You can understand intellectually that you're worthy of love, but if your nervous system never experiences it, your subconscious won't believe it. You need to create new experiences that show your subconscious. Look, you were right to protect me back then. But watch. I can be visible now and stay safe. I can be successful now and keep connection. I can be authentic now and still be loved. Small experiments, tiny risks, gentle exposures to the thing you've been avoiding. Each time you survive, each time the feared catastrophe doesn't happen, you're updating the subconscious programming. You're changing the observation at the deepest level. Step 4. Collapse into the new state. Here's where the quantum jump happens. Once your subconscious has enough new information, once it's no longer rigidly defending against the feared outcome, there's a window where you can collapse into a new state. This is the moment when the warning signal appears, when you feel that readiness for transformation. And in that moment, you make a choice. You observe yourself differently, not as the person who needs to stay small and safe, but as the person who's allowed to expand and thrive. You quantum jump to a new state of consciousness. And here's what's wild. It doesn't feel gradual. It feels like becoming a different person. Because you are. You're collapsing into a different possibility that was always available in your superposition. There's a term for this process of excavating and integrating subconscious material: shadow work. Your shadow is everything you've disowned, repressed, or denied about yourself. The parts you decided were unacceptable. The aspects of your experience you couldn't process in the moment, so you buried them. And here's the thing about shadows. They don't disappear. They just operate beneath conscious awareness, generating patterns and behaviors you don't understand. Every limitation in your life has a shadow component. Some part of you that you've rejected. Some aspect of your experience you haven't fully metabolized. That unresolved material creates drag. It keeps collapsing your wave function back into old patterns. Shadow work is the process of bringing light to these hidden aspects. Not to judge them or eliminate them, but to see them, understand them, integrate them back into wholeness. When you reclaim your shadow, you reclaim your energy. You stop fighting yourself. Your conscious and subconscious observations align. And when that alignment happens, quantum jumping becomes effortless. Because you're no longer divided. You're whole. And from that wholeness, transformation isn't something you have to force. It's something that naturally emerges. The ultimate goal isn't to quantum jump to a new egoic identity. It's to quantum jump into alignment with your soul. the deepest, truest essence of who you are beneath all conditioning. Your soul is the part of you that existed before you learned to be ashamed. Before you developed defense mechanisms. Before you took on others' expectations as your own. It's your original state. Your ground state in quantum terms. And here's what's beautiful. Your soul isn't damaged. It doesn't need healing. It's already whole. Everything you think of as broken in you is just layers of protection you built around your wholeness. The quantum jump into alignment is the moment you stop identifying with the protection and start identifying with the essence. You realize, I'm not my trauma. I'm not my fear. I'm not my limiting beliefs. I'm the consciousness that's aware of all of that. The observer, the witness, the space in which all experience arises. And from that identification, everything changes. Because now you're observing from your soul rather than from your wounded ego. And your soul observes possibility, not limitation. It sees your inherent worthiness, not your deficiency. It knows your power, not your brokenness. When your soul becomes the primary observer, you collapse into realities that reflect that truth. This is the quantum jump that changes everything.
Now, how do you actually do this? Understanding the theory is valuable. But if you can't apply it, it's just interesting philosophy. These aren't techniques you try once and hope for magic. They're practices that change your relationship to yourself and reality until the jump becomes inevitable. The foundation? Loosening your grip. The intensity of your self-observation is what's keeping you stuck. How many times a day do you check in on yourself to see if you're still the person you think you are? You monitor your thoughts. You judge your feelings. You assess whether you're being good enough, productive enough, lovable enough. This constant self-surveillance is strong measurement. It keeps collapsing you into your familiar identity. The first practice is simple but profound. Stop watching yourself so intensely. Practice 1. Compassionate witnessing. Instead of judging or analyzing yourself, simply witness. When a familiar thought pattern arises, I'm not enough. I always fail. Nobody understands me. Don't fight it. Don't try to replace it with a positive thought. Don't analyze where it came from. Just notice it. Oh, there's that thought again. Like you're watching clouds pass through the sky. You're not the cloud. You're the sky. The clouds just move through. This might sound too simple to be powerful, but it's the foundation of everything. Because when you stop fighting your thoughts, stop identifying with them, stop measuring yourself by them, you weaken the observation. You create space for different possibilities to emerge. Try this right now. Notice what you're thinking, then notice that you're noticing. That's the observer, the part of you that's aware of your thoughts, but isn't those thoughts. That observer is what you really are, not the content, the awareness. The more you rest in that observer position, the less rigidly you collapse into fixed identity states. Practice 2. Question your observations. Remember, your external reality is showing you your subconscious beliefs. But you can interrupt the feedback loop by questioning your interpretation. Something happens. Someone doesn't respond to your message. The automatic interpretation might be, they're upset with me. They don't care about me. I said something wrong. But that's not objective reality. That's your observation collapsing possibility into one specific meaning. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? Maybe they're busy. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they're processing. Maybe they're dealing with their own reality that has nothing to do with you. You're not trying to convince yourself of a positive interpretation. You're simply recognizing that your interpretation is one possibility, not the truth. This loosens the measurement, keeps you in superposition, open to multiple meanings rather than collapsed into one fearful narrative. Do this consistently and reality starts behaving differently, because you're no longer forcing it into rigid interpretations. Practice 3. Environmental curation. Your environment is constantly measuring you. Make sure it's measuring you as the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. Physical environment. What's in your space? Does it reflect who you're becoming or who you were? What do you see first thing when you wake up? Are there objects triggering old identity states? Informational environment. What are you consuming? News, social media, entertainment. Is it expanding your sense of possibility or confirming your limitations? Who are the voices in your head that aren't yours? Social environment. Who are you spending time with? Do they see you as capable of change? Or do they need you to stay the same? Are you in relationships that require you to perform an old version of yourself? This isn't about judgment. Some people love you and still measure you as your old self because that's who they know. That's okay. But you might need to create distance while you quantum jump, so their observation doesn't keep collapsing you back. And you might need to find new people who observe you as the person you're becoming. People who see your potential without needing you to prove it. Practice 4. Embodied shifts. Your subconscious doesn't speak English. It speaks sensation, emotion, and image. If you want to update subconscious programming, you need to communicate in its language. Breath work. Your nervous system state determines what you observe as real. When you're in sympathetic activation, stress response, you observe threat. When you're in ventral vagal activation, safety, connection, you observe opportunity. Simple practice. Extend your exhale. Make it twice as long as your inhale. This signals safety to your nervous system. Do this for 5 minutes and notice how your thoughts and perceptions shift. Movement. Your body holds patterns. Certain postures and movements are associated with certain identity states. Notice how you hold your body when you're feeling contracted, afraid, small. Then deliberately shift it. Stand differently. Move differently. Not fake, but experimental. Your body informs your mind. Change your body, and your mind follows. Visualization. This is where you create the experiential evidence your subconscious needs. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself as the version you're becoming. Not thinking about it, being it. How does that version move through the world? How do they feel in their body? What thoughts are effortless for them? Spend time there. Make it vivid. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between vivid imagination and actual experience. You're creating new data that updates the programming. Practice 5. The precursor signals. Remember the Yale experiment. They learned to detect the warning signal before a quantum jump. You need to learn your own warning signals, the signs that your consciousness is ready to transition. Common precursors. Intense restlessness or dissatisfaction with your current state. Dreams that feel significant or different. Old patterns suddenly feeling hollow or performative. Unexpected interests or desires arising. Physical sensations. Energy moving, heat, vibration, emotional releases. Synchronicities or meaningful coincidences. A sense of time speeding up or reality feeling malleable. When you notice these, don't dismiss them. Don't rationalize them away. These are your system preparing to jump. The key: don't abort the process. Stay with it. Allow the discomfort. Trust the transition. Practice 6. The decisive moment. A quantum jump happens when you make a decision at the identity level, not just the behavioral level. Behavioral decision: I'm going to start exercising. Identity decision: I'm someone who cares for my body. Feel the difference? One is about doing, one is about being. The quantum jump happens at the being level. It's the moment you stop trying to become something and simply decide you already are. Not as delusion, not as fake it till you make it, as recognition of a possibility that already exists in your superposition. Here's what it might feel like. You're sitting with your familiar anxiety about money. The same old story. There's never enough. I'm always behind. I can't get ahead. And then something shifts. Not gradually, suddenly. You realize this isn't truth. This is just one possibility I've been collapsing into. And you feel other possibilities available. A version of you that trusts, that knows you're provided for, that sees abundance all around. And in that moment, you choose. You observe from that other possibility. You collapse your wave function into that state. It feels like letting go and stepping into something at the same time, and everything changes. Not necessarily externally, not immediately, but internally. Everything is different. You're different. You've quantum jumped. Practice 7. Integration. After the jump, there's a critical period. Your old identity will try to reassert itself. Your environment will try to measure you as your old self. Your neural pathways will default to familiar patterns. This is normal. This is not failure. Your job is to stabilize in the new state, to consistently observe yourself as the new version until it becomes the default. Consistency of observation. Every day, multiple times a day, consciously observe yourself as the person you quantum jumped into being. Not affirming, not trying to convince yourself. Simply noticing, this is who I am now. Behavioral alignment. Let your actions flow from the new identity. Not forcing, not performing, just allowing. If you quantum jump to being someone who values their health, what does that person naturally do? They don't have to force themselves to make healthy choices. Those choices are effortless expressions of who they are. Boundary with old patterns. When the old identity tries to reassert itself, and it will, don't fight it. Just recognize it. Oh, that's the old pattern. But that's not who I am anymore. You're not suppressing, you're discriminating. Distinguishing between what's true now and what was true before. Patience with evidence. The external reality will lag behind your internal shift. This is physics. There's a propagation delay. Don't let the lag discourage you. Don't interpret it as proof that you didn't really change. Keep observing from your new state, and reality will catch up. Usually faster than you think. Here's the final level. At some point, you quantum jump from being someone who occasionally makes quantum jumps to being someone whose natural state is flexibility, fluidity, and conscious evolution. You stop identifying with any particular state. You realize you're the space in which all states arise. You become the quantum system consciously aware of its own superposition. And from that awareness, you can fluidly navigate between states as needed. You're not stuck. You're not rigid. You're not defending an identity. You're free. This is the ultimate quantum jump. From unconscious collapse to conscious navigation. From being the particle to being the wave. From being a fixed self to being the field of all possible selves. And once you make that jump, everything else becomes easy. because you're no longer trying to change from a place of deficiency. You're choosing from a place of wholeness. You're not manifesting what you don't have. You're selecting which possibility of the infinite possibilities you already contain you want to make actual. That's the difference. That's the revolution. That's what quantum mechanics has been trying to tell us all along. Nothing is fixed. Everything is possible. You are the observer who determines what becomes real. Einstein had fierce debates with the quantum physicists of his time. His famous line, "God does not play dice with the universe," was his objection to the randomness at the heart of quantum mechanics. But Einstein wasn't just being stubborn. He was pointing at something profound. He believed in local realism, the idea that physical properties exist independently of observation, that influences can't travel faster than light. Quantum mechanics violated both principles. Entangled particles influence each other instantaneously across any distance. Properties don't exist until measured. The observer and the observed aren't separate. They're entangled. Einstein designed thought experiments to prove quantum mechanics must be incomplete. There must be hidden variables, information we're not seeing that determines everything. For decades, it seemed possible he was right. We couldn't definitively prove it either way. Until 1964. Physicist John Bell developed a theorem that could test whether hidden variables exist. In the 1980s, Alain Aspect and his team performed the experiments. The result? No hidden variables. Reality really is fundamentally indeterminate until observed. Einstein was wrong. But here's what's beautiful. In being wrong, he helped us discover something far more profound than he imagined. Reality isn't a deterministic machine running on hidden clockwork. It is a participatory dance between consciousness and possibility. Physicist John Wheeler coined the term participatory universe to describe this relationship. He argued that the universe doesn't exist out there, independent of observation. It exists as a vast field of quantum possibilities, a superposition of every possible history and every possible future. And conscious observers, you, me, everyone, are the mechanism by which possibilities become actual. Every observation is an act of creation. Every choice is a quantum jump that determines which branch of possibility becomes real. You're not discovering a pre-existing universe. You're participating in creating it, moment by moment. Wheeler put it beautifully. We are participators in bringing into being not only the near and here, but the far away and long ago. Even the past isn't fixed until observed. Delayed choice experiments have tested this. The choice of how to measure a particle now determines what path it took in the past. Time itself is participating in this quantum dance. Quantum entanglement means particles that have interacted remain connected. Measuring one instantaneously affects the other, regardless of distance. You are entangled with everyone you've ever interacted with. Every conversation, every relationship, every passing moment of shared presence creates entanglement. And because you're entangled, when you quantum jump, the effects ripple through the entanglement web. People in your life who have never heard of quantum mechanics will suddenly start behaving differently around you. Not because you're manipulating them, but because the system, the relational field, has changed state. Your transformation is never just personal. It's systemic. This is the real mechanism behind raising your vibration, being the change, or holding space. You're not doing something to the people around you. You're changing your state within an entangled system. And the whole system reorganizes. This is empowering. And it's heavy, because it means you're responsible, not guilty. Responsible, able to respond. You're not responsible for everything that happens. You're not personally creating wars or famines or other people's choices. But you are responsible for your observation, your state, your contribution to the collective field. And that contribution matters more than you've been taught to believe. The modern worldview says you're insignificant. One person among billions. What could your choices possibly matter? But quantum mechanics says every observation matters. Every collapse of the wave function shapes reality. You're not insignificant. You're essential. The universe literally needs your consciousness to actualize itself. Evolution isn't a blind process of random mutations, somehow producing consciousness as a byproduct after billions of years. Evolution is consciousness learning to observe itself more clearly, from simple systems with minimal awareness, to complex systems with reflexive consciousness, to humans who can consciously direct their own evolution. And the next jump, the one we're preparing for collectively right now, is from unconscious collapse to conscious navigation, from being collapsed into fixed identities by conditioning to recognizing we are the collapsing mechanism and learning to wield that power consciously. This is the quantum leap for humanity, waking up to the fact that we're not passive passengers. We're the drivers. We're consciousness becoming conscious of itself as the creative force. And when enough individuals make that jump, when enough people wake up to their nature as quantum observers actively shaping reality, everything changes. So, here's what I'm saying to you. You're not broken. You're not limited. You're not stuck. You're a quantum system capable of discontinuous transformation. You contain multiple possible versions of yourself in superposition right now. The version that's healthy, aligned, authentic, powerful, free. That's not somewhere in your future. It exists right now as a possibility within you. All you have to do is observe it, collapse into it, make the quantum jump. I'm not saying this is always easy. I'm not saying there's no work involved. Shadow work is real. Healing is real. Integration takes time. But what I am saying is, you don't have to wait until you're healed to transform. The transformation and the healing happen simultaneously. You don't have to earn your wholeness. You have to recognize it was never missing. You don't have to become someone new. You have to stop identifying with the limited version and collapse into the fullness that's always been available. Here it is, as simple as I can make it. You are consciousness. Consciousness collapses possibility into reality through observation. Therefore, what you observe becomes real. This is physics. This is metaphysics. This is the operating system of existence. And once you really get this, not intellectually, but experientially, cellularly, in every fiber of your being, you become free. Free from the tyranny of circumstances. Free from the prison of your past. Free from the limitation of linear time. You become what you always were. Consciousness. Playing with possibility. Creating reality moment by moment. And from that freedom, you can quantum jump anywhere, to any version of yourself, to any experience of reality, to any contribution to the collective field. The only question is, where do you want to jump? Because the universe is waiting for your observation. Reality is waiting for you to choose. Your next quantum jump is waiting for you to stop measuring yourself as who you've been and start observing yourself as who you're capable of becoming. The choice is yours. But make it now, because this moment, right now, is the collapse point. This is where possibility becomes actual. This is where you quantum jump. Welcome to your new reality. Type, I just jumped. If this reached you at the right moment, share this only with someone who's ready to see. I wish you all the best. And until next time.